Hello, hello, hello. This is Misty Magdalena Grace with the new and improved version of Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, where we talk about spirituality, psychedelics, plant medicine, microdosing, and really that journey within to finding your best innate wisdom, to your best health, your best wealth through all sorts of inner child healing, trauma release, grief recovery, overcoming addictions, and working with the mind, the body, and spirit. So go ahead, leave a review, subscribe, download. We look forward to your feedback. Thanks for tuning in today. Well, all right. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. This is Magdalena. I go by Magdalena for short. As you heard from my intro, this podcast and also YouTube channel is designed to help you live your best life, your best health, your best wealth. And I am super excited. I'm going to dive right in today because we have a very, very special guest who, whether you're catching this live on the replay, I hope you have a notebook handy, pen and paper. You can be driving, I suppose, but you might want to listen to this where you can take some notes because Lori Lothian, also known as the Lunatic Astrologer, has been someone I've been following for over 18 months. Lori, I think you had maybe 50,000 subscribers at that time, and now she's over 100,000. And if you don't know me and you're new to my channel, I'm a mind, body, spirit alchemist and a healing practitioner. So for the past 4 years, I've really been diving deeper into that innate wisdom that our ancestors, as above, so below, as within, so without. And I was never really into astrology until about 4 or 5 years ago. And now I'm like talking to my clients about the new moon, full moon. We're doing circles and all of these different things and activations around the time, because if you really decide to get into this, and I think Lori might sway you today and share some amazing stuff, you can really time your best life, which is a phrase that I learned from Lori, and I love that. So Lori, I want to dive right in and introduce you. And Lori I love what you call yourself, a hippie mistress of magic and a seer. So 30 years ago, she landed a gig ghostwriting sun sign paperbacks for a famous and untimely deceased astrologer. And she was basically tossed into astrology and was able to fall in love with this sacred language of celestial bodies. And in 2018, a string of synchronicities led her to study traditional wisdom of ancient astrology. And now she does readings and predictions. I like to call her my prognosticator. She's predicted assassination attempts, earthquakes, a whole bunch of things. And I'm just really wowed by you, Lori, and I think you're fun, brilliant, and entertaining, and my favorite astrologer. So thank you for taking time to be with us here today.
Well, thank you for having me, Magdalena. I really enjoy your vibration. I love your little logos of wealthy and wise and healthy. Why not put them all together? The great combination, I would say. And I'm glad to be here and to talk astrology with some of your followers.
Yeah, I know we're going to get in. So just for those of you who are new to astrology, there's a lot happening in the world right now. This is, I call it March Madness month, where we have not one, but 2 eclipses. We're in the midst of Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde going on this weekend. I am not an astrologer, so I'm going to turn over to you, Lori. I'd love for you to share a little bit about your story and how you got so passionate, and then we'll dive into this eclipse season.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit of a Jill of many trades, and if anyone knows the Sufi system, of understanding your type, my Enneagram, I'm a 7, so I tend to generate an interest in a lot of different things, and then my real soul's path is to go diving deeply into one thing, and then I'm doing my right thing. So astrology's always been a back burner hobby, side hustle interest all through my journalism career. And I was a journalist in New York City, Washington, D.C. I'm from Canada. I am Canadian, but I lived in the United States because of my husband. And then I would always have this sort of side hobby of doing astrology for people and friends, and also tarot cards and psychic readings, the whole gamut. And that was me in my 20s into my early 30s. But then at one point, I decided that I was going to go completely woo, more or less. I always do this on and off with the woo, from my real world to my woo world. And once I kind of made the decision, and this is around 2017, to really pursue astrology more deeply than just a hobby, the doors opened up. And I think some of you might know this. Like, if you live your life with this sort of big question mark, I always say I'm praying to the God of what next. But, when I was in my 30s for a while, I was doing psychic readings, talking to the dad, remote viewing with Project Stargate, a bunch of stuff. But before all that happened in my 30s, that was one of my woo phases. Then I went back into journalism in my 40s. In my 30s, I just said, universe, if it's meant to be, give me a sign. I need a mentor. And like within a week or two, this weird circumstances unfolded. And I went to a lecture, and the person who was lecturing wasn't the person who was supposed to be lecturing. It was supposed to be Sonia Choquette, but she was sick. So they tossed in, this is in Washington, D.C. in the 90s, they tossed in this other woman from New York City who was a psychic, and she became my mentor. She literally had a psychic reading with me after she spoke a week later. And she said, I think I'm supposed to be mentoring you. Why am I getting this message? So,
Wow.
so she became my psychic mentor to move into a business of being a psychic reader for people, which I did for about 7 years. And same thing happened with the astrology. That's why that long story is to say, about 2017, 18, I'm like, I think I'm supposed to be going back into astrology or using it professionally, moving away again for more of the journalistic stuff, where I was an editor at several online magazines. And boom, the doors began to open lickety split in a chain of crazy synchronicities. So I always follow the path of that, you know, following the clues and the breadcrumbs, and then I follow where they lead. And that's how I ended up here. It was beautiful. It happened quickly. I started my full-time business online in 2019. But if you're following the timing, your best life is great. That just means don't go swimming against the current. And the sky tells you what the current is, so you don't get caught in a riptide of the sky or swim against it, which is hard. But you also have to be in your own life attentive to the synchronicities and the clues and the things that are trying to reach you. Right? Because what's trying to reach you is what you really want. So that's how I got into the astrology in 2017. Again, not down another woo rabbit hole.
I love that. I know me and my friends, I have a journalism background as well. And so we joke, like I'm a double Virgo, which was another thing that I thought was kind of fun when you talked about all the Virgos in your life. And I have an Aries moon, and I know you're in Aries. So there's like a lot of connections too that I really enjoyed watching and connecting with you. But I know that a lot of people are, they're kind of skeptical about astrology. So I first want to just, if there's anything else you can say about how maybe for them to look at it differently today before we dive
Yeah.
more into, yeah.
I find less and fewer people are skeptical of astrology. Like today, my practice is filled with doctors, lawyers, physicists, educators. I mean, the old astrology skepticism has really begun to wane. I think the collective understands that, like the soul has an absolute unforgiving need for regular excursions into enchantment. It needs it like the body needs food and the mind needs thoughts. That's good old the Moore guy, the philosopher guy, and the enchantment philosopher. And the reason we do astrology is we want to find the enchantment, we want to find the magic, we want to find the synchronicity, we want to go wow, we want awe and wonder, because once you have an astrology reading by an astrologer, they'll tell you things about yourself that they shouldn't know. They'll be able to see your past and they shouldn't know that. They'll see what's going on now and they shouldn't know that. They'll be able to tell you the future and you'll go back to them because they shouldn't know that. So it reintroduces that sense of awe, wonder, and enchantment, which we so desperately need, because we became a very scientific, materialistic universe during the old Descartes thing. So we're coming back into a mystical, enchanted time in our lives. And the only thing I can say about astrology is it works. So if you want to ask me how it works, well, then we can have a big philosophical discussion. If you want to ask me about fate and free will, we can have another discussion. But when you were born, the sky has a constellation of planets in a certain position, and your own sky is quite unique because you're born in a place at a time. And that place and time of birth, latitude, longitude, time of birth, geographical location, means that you and anyone born in the hospital at the very minute you were born, okay, you all share that same kind of chart, which is like a mandala or like a kaleidoscope. When you turn the kaleidoscope, everything constellates a little bit differently. And that is your code. That is your algorithmic code of your life. It's going to tell you when, where, what, and why things are happening in your life. And it tells you why you're even born. Why are you here? And so your little mandala or constellation or configuration or Rorschach blot of the sky at the time of your birth, from the place of your birth, at the minute of your birth, and that really matters that someone wrote it down, is uniquely you. And as the sky moves in our current sky, as things occur in our current heavens, they interact with your natal sky as if your natal sky is still like an existing template. Like there are hot pockets of the heavens. You're born with Venus and Taurus at 2 degrees Taurus. Well, as if she's still sitting in the Western tropical constellation of Taurus, which is a constellation of the bull, as if she's still sitting there. She's sitting there in sort of like a eternal now from the moment you were born. And things in the sky going through our heavens now, where Venus is traveling right now, Western tropical Aries, retrograde. She could cross Taurus, not now, but in a couple months, and she'll cross over your natal Venus. And that literally is an awakening of your natal sky. And that's predictive value. It tells you what it might mean, what might happen. There are so many tools in astrology. The simplest one is transits. The more complex ones are time lords. All said and done, it works. It just works.
Oh, and I love what you share because I followed quite a few astrologers. And when you talk about Sabian symbols and asteroids, and the names of them are so uncanny about what's happening on the planet Earth right now with, famous people and all of that. So literally as above, so below. It's uncanny. And I wanted to just give a shout out to a couple of our people who are here, just so you know. Lori, we got some of your fans in the house. Thanks, Sue, for chiming in. I literally have the same prayer, hoping Lori can be my mentor one day. She's amazing. And someone also, I know you love chocolate, but she says, I don't know how you survive on chocolate, but I love listening to you. And I make notes to send to family and friends. So I do want to just acknowledge that. So if you're a guest today, live streaming, and if you want to chime in, and depending on how the interview goes, Lori's got limited time. I may even be able to field some questions. I don't want to promise that because we got a lot to cover here today. So I know we love to talk about mundane astrology. When I say we, you especially, but me, when I listen to your show and I'm like, oh my gosh, she predicted that Trump would be attempted, assassinations, earthquakes, airplane crashes, so maybe if you want to speak a little bit about what's going on in the world in the mundane first, and then we can talk more about the eclipses and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, right now, the main thing that's happening are those two eclipses, the one on the 14th, 15th, and the one coming up on March 29th. And but both of these eclipses, one is the new cycle of South Node eclipses in Virgo. South Node means to release, surrender, let go. It usually depicts something to do with loss. So, for example, people with strong Virgo placements may be letting go of things over the next 6 months that are illuminated for them, so they understand what to let go of. And so there's a time that we're just entering into. We're in that, we're well into the pre-shadow of the eclipse coming up at the end of this week. So we're already feeling some of the things that maybe we're being asked to release in our sky. Depends on our sign. Our rising sign is usually most accurate for eclipses, to depict it from your rising sign. But for the world events, then Virgo energies are also under duress. For example, Lebanon is a Virgo rising nation, and it historically, during South Node eclipses every 18 and a half years, will have terribly difficult times in the country, assassinations of their leaders, war with their nation next door, Israel, difficulties with their election process, whatever. So we can just pretty well say rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, and rinse, repeat. So that's a problem for sure. And Virgo rules health as well as earth. So earth issues, agriculture issues, issues to do with trade and commerce, like the tariffs. And I know probably someone's saying to it right now, what do you mean trade, commerce, and tariffs and Virgo? And why I say that is it's ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is the ruler of commerce. So anything to do with commerce, we could head into some really bumpy roads here in the next 6 months off of this lunar eclipse. I mean, I'm not expecting it to be necessarily the Great Recession that takes over the world, like 1929 into the 30s. But I would say there's going to be a significant contraction in the stock markets and the economy, probably from this eclipse. And if you go back in time, you'd like to sort of go, well, when did these eclipses last happen? And the Virgo eclipse is correlated with the subprime loan scandal, 2007 eclipses as well. So we had that, downturn in the economy back then as well in the United States, but it impacted many countries in the world. So we're in cyclical nature of reality. It keeps on showing up over and over again. Here we go again. The main wave of those Aries eclipses that have been playing out since April of 2023, and this is our last eclipse for 18 years. This last eclipse is to sort of tie it up with a ribbon or a bow. The last version of this eclipse is kind of complicated. It's on the March 29th time frame in the sign of Aries at around 9 degrees. If you have a 9-degree placement in your chart near Aries, that planet or that moon or the rising or the sun will be strongly impacted. But because the node of fate has moved on and it's already ingressed into tropical Pisces, this is going to bleed the meaning of your Pisces and Aries chart together. But for me, the most important part of this is the war wound. And the reason I say that is Chiron has been in Aries, and he is the noble mentor of the warriors and the soldiers of the ancient world. And yet there's a wound wherever he goes. And so we're having in the sign of war a war wound since 2019. If that hasn't ever been more evident, it's like right in our face, right? This is not a war off in the Congo with a civil war. This is a war that everyone's aware of between Russia and Ukraine and Israel and Palestine. And in essence, to me, that war wound is trying to be healed or closed up or sutured up with this very last eclipse in the sign of Aries, particularly with the node floating into Pisces next door, because Pisces rules Gaza and any land that borders ocean, like the Gaza Strip. So we'll probably see some solutions there. And when we talk about Ukraine and Russia, it also includes Crimea, which is on the ocean. And there's that whole energy again of places where sea and land are being disputed. So we'll see changes in both of those wars. We'll see them come to a close in some way over the next 6 months to a year from the March 29th eclipse. I mean, the chironic wound of war wants to heal. And I think you probably know this one. If you listen to my videos, that we had the similar type of chironic wound in the sign of war dovetailing with these Aries eclipses back in 1968. During the Vietnam War and the protests and the sit-ins and Chiron in Aries and eclipses in Aries. And it's the same cyclical nature of reality. And there was also correspondent distress in the Middle East at the same time. So the more you start to track the cycles, you see what they're doing and how they are trying to continually repeat the story, but with slight variations on the theme, right? It's like when somebody does a cover, someone sings a song and someone does a cover, and then someone does a cover of the cover. Over time, every 18 years is the same song, but with a little bit of a twist.
I love that. That's a great point. We are, people ask, why does history repeat itself? Well, we're kind of actually talking about that here today. I know with and correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I know you're the expert, but last fall we had a Virgo eclipse September 17th, and it was also Aries, like October 2nd. Did I get that right?
Oh my God, we did not have an Aries eclipse in October. We had a total solar eclipse swathing across the United States of America. That was important. April 8th. And that is a very big deal eclipse. The magnitude of it can't be underestimated because of the totality, but also because it crossed another eclipse in Libra, and it created like an X in the United States, just like this, right? X marks the spot. And that is interesting because it's Texas. So I'm still waiting to see what's going on in Texas. That this is like Elon Musk has one of his things there. I think it's Skylink or something. He's got one of his centers in Texas. Yeah. But because it's like a geographical, you Texans listening, geographical spot that was crossed by two different eclipses, one in October and one in April, it kind of indicates that the United States, especially the Texas area, but the US in general, is in the epicenter for the world, for the whole world, of some major shifts. And if it isn't, again, evident, we're talking about an eclipse in October of 23, right? So, and then we're talking about eclipse in April of 24, and bang, we have, a revolutionary new government. We have an overturn of the expected, potential winner. We had chaos in the election. But again, this cycle repeated in 1968. 1968, the incumbent president, Lyndon Johnson, decided he was going, and that was the eclipse through Aries with Chiron, was going to step away for health problems. And his vice president, Hubert Humphreys, ran against Nixon. The platform was Republican Nixon saying end to the Vietnam War. There were citizen protests with students in universities, just like there was for that Gaza war. There were situations where even the DNC was in Chicago again. And the outcome of that situation was that the incumbent president's vice president lost the election, and the Republican opponent, won the election. And one of the main war platform promises was he was going to end the war. And of course, Donald Trump, whether you like him or hate him, was doing the same thing. That was one of the main platforms upon which he ran. And so, like, the eerie irony of the cycle being so perfectly repeating is important. But what I would like to point to is that cross that went through the United States is still activated by this last eclipse. The sense is it's not done yet. What is it for? And my deepest fear, or concern, I don't have a fear about it, but I have a quality of concern, is that it reminds me of the JFK assassination. And it really feels like with Donald Trump's chart in such peril between now and mid-April, it looks to me like almost like the bullet that clipped his ear that I did see coming. It's coming back, Ides of March, anywhere mid-March to mid-April. He's back in significant harm's way. And X marks the spot through Texas where JFK was assassinated.
Wow. Yeah. I'm so glad you brought all of that up. I know I was going to mention, I guess this will be a nice transition to how can people prepare for these eclipses? Because ever since finding you, and I think it was October 23 that October of 2023 that I really started taking these eclipses seriously and setting intentions. What do I want to let go of? What do I want to call in? And most of these eclipses have been in my partner house, so I'm not going to get into too much personal stuff, but let's just say I'm ending a huge relationship in my life, which was all part of that partnership in the seventh house. I've changed business partners. I've had massive endings and massive shifts, and helped clients even do medicine work and different ceremonial healings around this time of year. And so this is a time for all of you to really take this seriously, in my opinion. And why is that? Lori, if you want to maybe share a little bit more of now, like how this applies to people's personal lives, I'd love for you to do that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, just let's talk about what eclipses are for and what to do with them and what not to do with them. Like, they are codes for waves of change. That's all that means. A wave of change that takes 18 months to go through your sky. And at every 18 months, there's going to be a new wave of change through your sky. And it's going to be on a dumbbell axis of two signs, like opposite each other, like a barbell or a dumbbell. So, always opposite Virgo is Pisces. That's where that wave of change has begun at this point. And it'll complete by late summer of 26 into the fall. There'll be some dredgy last minute eclipses into the fall of 26. And energetically, these waves of change are codes of destined change. And that's where you get into the fate and free will dilemma, because we each have 12 pie slices of our sky. But if you go on the sort of dumbbell story, right, that means you have 6 axes in your sky. So there are 6 axes of change that are like a clock going through your sky all the time. Certain axes of change will be more monumental to you and have much more impact on the circumstances of your life, where some of these axes of change will be more interior and have changes on the interior part of your life. But they will indeed indicate destined changes of direction, whether they're how you feel and think and navigate within your life, like, your philosophy, your ideas, your inner work, or like my home has changed. I was just listening to one of my colleagues, Cam White, before we started, talking about the eclipse to his moon or something, or his 4th house IC, but that has to do with home and how he got like kind of jettisoned out for a water problem on an eclipse that happened in September. There was a Pisces eclipse. And same for me. I used to live in Montreal, and I had an eclipse to the root of the chart. It's called your IC, your Immium Coli, represents the midnight hour at birth. But an eclipse to the root of your chart will change either your career or your home. And I knew it was going to be uprooted. I just didn't know why. It was a lunar eclipse, and a lunar eclipse will reveal to you why you're going to move. So I had no agency on that. I didn't have, I beg to differ. I beg to differ, Sky. I'm not going to move. No. The only agency I had was, where was I moving to, not would I move. And so in essence, the first thing I'd say about the theme of waves of destined change that take 18 and a half months to flow through a portal of 2 houses in our sky, meaning an axis of change. And one side is to let go, and one side is to reach for. North node, you reach for something. South node, you let go of it. That you can't resist the change. You can only decide how cooperative you're going to be with the change. And therefore, timing your best life with eclipses is to know, there's something's about to change here. I better pay attention to this. I wonder what it could be. And like kind of open up to it rather than resist it, because otherwise you're just going to go in there, dragged it in there fighting and screaming. But your soul agreed to that. You see, my personality may disagree, but my soul set up the damn agenda, right? Someone else made this itinerary for me. It wasn't me. So I'll have to go with it. Second of all, when it comes to real eclipse, like, okay, we're having an eclipse, right, coming up this week, and Thursday, Friday, time zone dependent. But the point being, it's here. Do not do things like look at a lunar eclipse. I'm trusting the ancient wisdom. The last lunar eclipse I looked at, my life fell apart really badly. It's considered ill omen. Do not do to look at a solar or solar or lunar eclipse. And it's kind of funny that Donald Trump was famous for looking up at the eclipse. Remember that?
Right before the pandemic, right? Yeah,
Oh, yeah, but
2019.
the point is his whole life kind of everything went downhill. 2017, he in August, there's a picture of him squinting at an eclipse without his goggles on. Now, you don't want to look at a solar eclipse that was total anyway, and that went through the United States as well without your goggles, but you just watch the replay. Don't go out there and look at it. And technically, there's a portal that opens on a solar and lunar eclipse. And the ancients considered it to be also a little gnarly. Think about it like a breach in space time, and in comes, gremlins and demons and ghouls and anything else that could slip through, like a Halloween veil is thin. So you're best to stay home, wear white, put your mantras on, burn some sage or incense, stay calm. They call it sattvic in India. And don't be overly agitated or overly slothful, right? Don't numb yourself out on drugs on an eclipse night, and yet don't wander around the house pacing and smoking nicotine. Just find this inner balance between the two. So in other words, play your calming meditation music, wear white, take a bath. There was suspicion about not leaving food out under the eclipse because that food that you leave out is now sort of contaminated. I don't go that far. I'm not that kosher with my eclipses, but I'm more like, okay, I'm just going to take it easy. I'm going to lay low. And then the other idea during the eclipse portal, which is like, the day of the eclipse kind of thing, if you get really agitated, which is, angry, bitter, jealous, or frustrated, or some negative emotion, you're potentially kind of setting it in stone, anchoring it into the energy of the eclipse, which then can sort of taint your next few months ahead, as that energy has been sort of like, I wish there was a good analogy for that, but maybe it's like, you inject it into some kind of current in a water body, a toxic spill, and then it's going to keep spilling out into the future. So be careful about your feelings. If you know you're going to have a difficult conversation with your significant other and you got to have it at some point, don't have it during the eclipse.
Especially with the Mercury retrograde coming up on Saturday, right?
Especially with Friday's Mercury retrograde. Oh my God, station retrograde till April the 7th. Yeah, well, if you have a conversation that's difficult under retrograde, that just could mean there's a lot of back and forth and changing of mind. But the eclipse itself is just like, keep the difficult stories out of the story for at least 24 hours during the eclipse.
Okay. So when you said portal, it's not necessarily a 2-week portal between the lunar and the
Oh
solar.
no, that's a modern thing, by the way. That's a whole modern thing that we're in the eclipse portal between the two eclipses. Well, we are in a very active engagement of destined change that starts about a month before the first eclipse. It ends about a month after. There's just a lot of change going on. So we get a window of about 2 months or so where circumstances are really rattling through our lives that feel like we don't have control. No steering wheel. I would say no steering wheel on the eclipse ride. But no, the portal I'm talking about is the day of the eclipse. The light has been eclipsed. The light of the moon that reflects the sun is now darkened and turns blood red. And the light of the sun is now eclipsed. We can't see the sun to some degree, partial or partial eclipse or total eclipse. And we want light, right? The light is the thing, like, the light in the dark, it's the archetype of the light in the dark. So what's in the dark are the spooky things, and what's in the dark is the mystery and the unknown. There's good and bad in the dark. That's why you can use an eclipse for contemplation and quietude. Not for manifestation. It's considered to be erratic and unpredictable energy. And so if how that new moon thing is, people manifest on a new moon or make a spell. I wouldn't charge my crystal under the light of a new moon. I have a friend who did a shamanic journey with ayahuasca or something dangerously crazy. One of the most intense experiences of their life under an eclipse. And if you're ready for that depth of experience, sure. But I wouldn't do a love spell under an eclipse. It's going to backfire badly.
I don't want to interrupt you. Can I ask a question? Is this a good spot to take a break?
Yeah, of course.
Especially because I know my audience may be newer to this and I'm also newer, but the difference between the lunar and solar and the fact that one is a full moon and a new moon, could you repeat that or reiterate that?
Sure. So in normal life, a full moon is about fulfillment and completion, right? That's why we don't usually do a manifestation on a full moon, because we're completing or fulfilling something. And just so you know the architecture of the sky, every time we have a new moon, then we have a full moon 6 months later. That's the way the sky works. So the new moon, full moon cycle is new moon, full moon. So first of all, we manifest on a new moon normally because it's planting a seed, and a new moon is a dark moon. The sun and the moon are together and the moon is dark. You want to start a seed there. You want to plant a seed. And a full moon, the moon and the sun are opposite each other, and the moon is bright. It reflects the light of the sun in the sky, in the heavens. And then you want to see the fulfillment of the seed you planted. So that's the rhythm of new and full moons. But then we add the eclipses to it, right? During a total lunar eclipse that we're having this week, it's going to indicate that the sun is casting a shadow. The earth is getting between the sun and the moon, and the shadow of the earth begins to eclipse the light of the moon. So yes, it is still a full moon. It is still a completion and a fulfillment of something we began 6 months earlier. July, August, September, October, November. I can't remember. Wait, what was the date? Because I had the date of that one, but my brain is.
September 17th was when we had the.
No. We're going back to the new moon in Virgo, right? So we got to go back to the summer in Virgo season, which is normally August into September. Right. So sometime we had a moon like somewhere between the third week of August and the third week of September. We had a new September 7th. September 7th, we had a new moon in Virgo. This full moon is connected to that. Don't worry about the eclipse. The eclipse we had last September 25th was in Pisces, right? Okay. That was an eclipse. But what this eclipse this week is connected to, is it connected to the September 7th new moon in Virgo. So we all collectively planted a seed in the new moon 6 months earlier. Individually and collectively, you have a Virgo piece of your sky, one of 12 pie slices around the sky that represent a slice of celestial real estate. It's called a house, but it's also a zodiac sign. And we're using whole sign houses. It's the ancient tradition. One house, one sign. And then we planted a seed in September, and here we are now, and this is the culmination of it. So I'll give you an example. Let me think of a world example. Well, in September, the Hezbollah pagers blew up. In September, Israel invaded Lebanon. In September, Israel bombed a bunch of Lebanese apartment buildings and killed tons of civilians and children. Okay, that's what happened in September. What do you think that's going to mean now that we're at a full moon eclipse in relationship to themes of Middle East destruction and the nation of Israel? We're going to see a replication of that. It doesn't have to be Lebanon. It could be Gaza. We'll see themes fulfill from seeds planted. You plant a wicked seed in September, excuse me, but I'm political on this one. I'm anti-genocide. Wicked seeds are planted. Wicked fulfillments, rotten, wicked fruit is fulfilled. That's exactly what that is. In your own life, though, you're not a nation. You're a person. You go back to September. You try to think of themes related to your Virgo sky. So if you were, so if you're like a Pisces rising, then, or even you could try for Pisces sun, but if you're a Pisces, then Virgo is a house of significant long-term love relationships for you. And did you plant a seed for change or renewal or beginnings in September that is fruiting now in an eclipse? And the only difference between the full moon, meaning a fulfillment or a completion, and it being an eclipse, is the gravity, intensity, and faded quality of the fulfillment change. It's huge energy. It's not just any ordinary moon connected to full moon connected to 6 months earlier's new moon. No, it's got real intense oomph to it. I'll give me as an example. From one of the ways to define my chart as an Aries sun, Virgo happens to be about my health. It's my 6th house of health. I started a new health protocol in September. I went on a diet called the Autoimmune Protocol Diet. I planted the seed then. It's been amazing. There's a fulfillment seed now. Will I take it further? Will I add something to that plan? Will I complete it and go back to normal eating? There's going to be a connection to something in my health that I did in September to something I might fulfill at this juncture. But with the eclipse, it's destined change. So imagine I'm going to say, I'm going to do more AIP protocol, but the eclipse opens up a revelatory full moon that says, oh no, you're not doing that. You're going to go carnivore. Or you're going to go vegan or something, I'll find it like more information than I bargained for.
Right on. So the full moon again is the completion, and with the new moon eclipse coming up, and I know you really wanted to talk about that because I think that's going to tie up with endings or put things in a pretty little package with a bow on it.
Yeah, because right now the Virgo eclipse is really one of 4 Virgo eclipses, right? So there's really at this point that Virgo eclipse is the first part the first act of a 3 to 4 act structure. And so you really can't get a sense of what each of us is going to do with it. I don't know if this is going to blow up the Middle East or it's going to close down the war, but it's going to make some changes in that war in the next month or two after this eclipse. This happening this week, major changes in the Middle East. I can guarantee that one. And, there's Virgo people in the world too, like, that will be impacted, Virgo risings, especially in politics. If I remember correctly, my prime minister in Canada is a Virgo rising. Yes, he is. So his career is just coming to a catastrophic end, right? He's just resigned and now he's being replaced. So that's all a part of the seed that was planted in September where everybody was shouting for him to resign. And now he's been sort of forced into it. And as this eclipse happens in the next week, he'll actually resign. So, and he's a Virgo rising with this, midheaven and Taurus. So yeah, so that story is just beginning, and certain things about that story have more acts to go. But what the eclipse that we're having, the end of a cycle of Aries eclipses that began in 2023, and so April 23, April 24, March 29th this year. That last new moon or solar eclipse, a new moon is a solar eclipse, a lunar eclipse is a full moon. The new moon eclipse in Aries, which occurs at 9 degrees of Aries, is the last eclipse out of a cycle of eclipses. And so it's literally the closing chapter. And it's nice to kind of figure out what you guys all think and what I think we're closing out. Like, and I'm happy to go through all signs and just give a suggestion if you want. I can do that.
That'd be great. I was going to ask that because someone did ask a question. I'm just going to throw out, Cassie was asking if she should quit smoking or be successful under this eclipse. So I'm not saying that everyone needs to ask questions like that, but I know that if you are able to make a suggestion about each rising sign, maybe that would be incredible.
Yeah, but for Cassie, absolutely. That's exactly like me. The health house and Mars is cutting, ending, and severing. And you got all the oomph there with Mars is in his joy in Virgo for an Aries rising. That's a really good, strong place for him. And for cutting out and quitting anything, absolutely. And by the way, any one of you Aries people who are listening and you're trying to get rid of something, cut and sever or quit, you also have a lot of action in your 12th house of addictions and self-undoing with North Node energies and, a sun conjunction to Saturn this week. And that can really help you change that as well. Have the gravitas and the steadfast desire to end something is a really good time for quitting things for anyone who's an Aries rising. She says the wine lover's middle way, girl. No, I don't want to quit my wine. my girlfriend came over the other night and she's a total Virgo, but she's a big, loves her wine. She came in and she brought a chick lit sobriety book and says she's not drinking. And I'm like, you are not drinking? You are like the reason I have trouble stopping drinking. And this is coming into my Aries eclipse, right? I'm getting the message. Okay, I'll stop my wine. I love my wine, but I'll stop my wine for a while again.
That's awesome. I'm not going to say anything because this isn't about me, but I specialize in addiction recovery, and I am a double Virgo, so Virgo rising and Virgo sun. So I can relate to. For me, it's more like mead or beer, but it's been a journey, let me tell you. So that's one of the reasons I love tuning in, just to be able to see what you have to say for those of us in that realm, of our own journeys.
Yeah. Well, there's addiction. Yeah, where if you're not addicted to wine and you haven't got your escapist hatch issues resolved, you'll be addicted to Netflix. So really, the form of escape is everyone's choice, but really underneath it all is being present.
Yeah. And it is about transference too. And I just want to acknowledge, because this is the largest number of people we've had, I just want to welcome you to my channel. And if you enjoy the show, please hit the share button. Sharing is caring. We want to get more people following and subscribing to Lori. And then of course, if you like this show, I would really appreciate you hitting the like button, and subscribing to my channel too. And just really appreciate all of your support. So carry on, Lori. I want to see what you would like to share.
Oh, I'm glad that you have a lot of people here. I'll be sharing the replay tonight or tomorrow morning with my Cosmic Moonshine newsletter people. It's just that I got so behind this week. Okay, I can sort of address a little bit about each sign, just in the sense of what you want to finalize and how you want to close something up. And so we really already talked about the Aries folk, because your sixth house is normally a health house. It also can be a work house, and Virgo is your sixth house in the whole sign house. And I want to say one thing. I know a lot of people who are new to astrology may be extremely confused by the concept of house systems, but at the end of the day, in order for you to be understanding material from astrologers in YouTube land, you need to look at it from the perspective of the tradition, and the Indian astrologers use it, and the ancient astrologers call whole sign houses. It doesn't help to have Placidus in your sky when you're trying to understand simplified and also very accurate astrology. And so if anyone wants to cast your chart in whole sign houses, go over to my channel. It's a free gift in under all of my videos. It's just a tutorial I've created. Okay, so so for Aries people, the health house is being asked to be attended to by the eclipses. I went into the wrong eclipse. Sorry, cut, but it's still, I was going to go into the Virgo eclipse. Let's go to the Aries solar eclipse to finalize something. If you're an Aries, you really are ending a story about I am. You can go I am ... fill in the blanks. And I want you to think back to 2023 April, where we had a first eclipse there. It was at 29 degrees of Aries, and then another one in April of last year, and now another one. And so the Aries people listening, whether, I don't care if it's your sun, moon, or rising, but if it's your rising, it's especially connected to your identity, and your sun, it's your identity connected to your career and purpose. But in essence, it's the place of your identity, and your identity wants to change. That's basically what it is. And it's a destined change wave of identity and sense of selfhood and sense of what autonomous self wants to do in this life and in any area of your life. So it's I am what, so that I can what. I am bold so that I can take that new job. I am smart so I can go to that university. I am motherly and I can get pregnant. Like, there is a sense of identity that wants to be shifting gears, and it's a destined change of identity. It's a shift that's coming upon you, and you are receiving it as opposed to having to make it up on the fly. And because you're shifting your identity, you're also shifting the body mind complex. The whole, like, here's my hair, here's my head. You're Aries, right? You always bump your heads. I bet I do. But the Aries rising, especially, bump your head, hit your ram's horns on something. But their body is going to change a little bit too. Because the North Node, it's amplifying a shift of identity, but also can be a shift in your body, and it can be a shift in your wardrobe, and it can be a shift in your sense of you're in an avatar in the simulation, and you've chosen a new set of tools or a new costume. You're still the same avatar. I was going to play a video game. I'm going to go in as, a Xena Warrior Princess activation in the video game, but then I can adapt the way she dresses. Maybe I can give her a new weapon or whatever. So there's a way in which the whole character view has been changing since 2023 in destined faded ways. And so as those changes have happened, some of you may have had some significant changes in your career, in your relationship to your significant other, and in where you live, because those areas of the chart also would have been highly activated from that same eclipse cycle through Aries. Now you're finishing up. So now the costume you end up with, the identity you end up with, I'm bold, I'm capable, I'm smart, I am pregnant, whatever, I am single, I am divorced. The identity you end up with now is going to lock and load for 18 more years. So you've created something that lasts that long. So this is the last sort of chance to maybe kind of wiggle around a bit and figure out, is this the right one? Is this what I want to, is this who I want to be over the next few years? That's your assignment, should you choose to accept it. So it's a big one. And everything comes characters first. If you're a fiction writer like I am, you know that plot is second to character. Character is identity, and identity is motive. So when you are understanding your character more deeply and expanding and changing it in a destined way, Last Chance Saloon, March 29th, add up to a year, then you're done this wardrobe change, and you won't be doing it again for another 18 years. And Aries sun, your career is changing. And Aries moon, maybe your home and your feelings are changing. And Aries sun, your relationship to your dad, and Aries moon, your mom. These are changes you've been experiencing during this last eclipse cycle. It's finishing, grand finale. So it's a lot for you because it's all about you. So that's why I spent so much time there. Now, one more thing I want to say for Aries, because it's so critical. You won't have a North Node cycle for another 18 years here. You can go back to the past and compare if you like. It's sort of, derive some lessons from 18 years ago, 2004, 5, and 6. But also another one is like, how you're on a mountaintop or at a national park, and they have those viewfinders, and you could, sometimes you have to put money in them, but you can look through them at the various things you can see on the edge of the Grand Canyon or something. Well, that's what it's like too, to be at this first house placement, especially for your risings, the eclipses are changing the viewfinders. So you're like aiming in a new direction. Your perspective is changed as a result of these eclipses. So what you want and where you're headed is changing as well. So that's another way of seeing it. All right. So if you're the Taurus folk and it's ending a cycle, this is your clean cut from addictions. I mean, you guys are like, if you've struggled with self-doubt, self-undoing, self-sabotage, basically, where the enemy is within, if that has been a problem for you, there's something in your life that you hold yourself up from success and from happiness. This is a nice cycle of endings for that in a beautiful way. The eclipses have been pushing you to address the issues and to face them head on, especially with Chiron, the wounded one there. All of us have felt a little wounded some way, Aries, since 2019, your identity. But your Taurians are thinking like, oh, shoot, I always wanted to quit the weed and the nicotine, the vape and the heroin, but I have never been able to do it. And it's always been a challenge. And now this is the last chance you have to really finalize an aptitude for success and release regarding addictions. And should you be able to receive that possibility and participate in it over the course of the next year from the eclipse on March 29th. The good news is it amplifies your social groups and friendship circles. It brings allies and benefactors to you and increases your career gains. So cleaning up your self-sabotaging and addictions act is extremely powerfully amplifying success and the actualizations of your dreams, hopes, and wishes as well. So this is a nice cycle for if you can break through that, you get the gold sticker from the teacher right away. You begin to see better results in cheerleaders, allies, friends, benefactors, dreams coming true, career gains amplified. So it pays off for you in dividends. Finally, some of you may have thought it'd be a good idea to go away to join the convent, ashram, or the nunnery during these eclipses. I mean, not a nunnery, it's a bordello, but go off and join some like deep dive into spiritual questing and seeking and searching and finding, hopefully. And so this is the last chance for that cycle to also say, can you do that? Do you want to go on a pilgrimage to Egypt? You want to go on an adventure? You want to do the El Camino? That will really call you. So pay attention to that yearning in the next 6 months. It's going to be strong for some of you. The Geminis are looking at this whole change of social circles. Geminis, you're like, not my people. I'm not so sure. I think not. Goodbye. And some friends left you and you had no choice. Maybe they moved. Maybe there was just a distance, a chill that wouldn't thaw, but that's okay. The destined end of friendships was also accompanied and will continue to be for a year, the amplification of destined new friends and social setting groups that are more aligned with your purpose and destiny. And the eclipses for some of you may have changed some of your goals for your life, what you really thought you wanted to achieve. And sometimes your bucket list needs are rearranging, and you've probably been going through it and going, yeah, not that, netty. I don't want that. What's left at the end of the day is what's really true for you in terms of long range wishes, goals, and dreams. And the eclipses could have brought a soulmate romantic partner to you since 2023 as a Gemini. South Node was across the way and North Node amplified the intensity of that connection on the other side. Possibly a love relationship has come and may still be there or may be completing, but you'll have to sort of watch and see. A lot of the changes that you're having right now after this eclipse, this last one, will amplify success in your career. And so I want you to keep your eye on the ball for like friends, allies, and people who wish to help you. Benefactors means someone wants to help you to succeed in your career, and certainly say yes, because that's one of the themes of this eclipse. It can really help you find a very powerful new amplitude in your career through some groups of people that support you or other people that want to help you. So I am on this podcast. I have a progressed Gemini sun. And so someone's asking me to come speak on their podcast, right? So it's helping my career too. So favors from friends as well. Now, if you are a Cancer, Sun, Moon, Rising type, especially Rising, of course, the wave of change since 2023 in Aries was all about that career path. And for you, a large part of the challenge would be finding success in career, but feeling like you were meaningfully on purpose, because Chiron kept saying, well, if it's not meaningful, if it's not true, if it's not the key to your purpose, if you're not using your talents and gifts here, then what are you doing here? So a lot of times this transit for you guys of eclipses, this is very different than 2004 to 6 because you didn't have Chiron there. This is like 1968. You're like probably looking at this as a time of deeper reflection, that maybe your career path, this last eclipse coming up on the 29th, over the next 6 months to a year, might require you to go back to school, to educate, to study something, to find a new teacher, because there's a lot of activation of the node of your in the ninth house. And that's kind of like, who are you learning from? What are you learning? And to go forward in your career, you might need to look at learning a new modality, taking some lessons or studying, for example. And even some of you might find a particular guide, teacher, mentor, or career coach in the next few months to help you align your purpose. Except if your purpose is book publishing, and then this is your golden ticket eclipse to get that book published, all right, by yourself or with an agent. Take your pick. And how about Leos? Well, first of all, Aries eclipses are good for you. It's a fire to fire, right? Fire to fire. It's an air trine, a fire trine. And so these eclipses every 18 years, you quite welcome them. You're one of the signs that doesn't resist, you know? And so the changes that are being asked of you since 23 till this last eclipse now, at the end of this month, have to do with your meaning of life. The deepest dharma meaning how are you going to align your life with your purpose, and your purpose and gifts are used appropriately, and you're in the Tao, so to speak. You're flowing with the true north of your reason for being here. And so there's a lot of meaning making going on for you in the last 2 years. But eclipses in the ninth house can eclipse situations of the ninth, which is relationships with a father figure. Maybe eclipse matters to do with academics and study in foreign places, or just foreign places or academics. And so, you could have changed a major, you could have changed your city that you lived in regarding studies. It just changes up there. And a lot of compulsion for pilgrimages and travel abroad. And this last eclipse can open up financial opportunities for you now. It opens up doors to shared resources in your eighth house. It can be an inheritance over the next 6 to 12 months after this eclipse. It could be money from your spouse, like their money increases. Could be money because of a separation from a spouse. You never know. Pluto is in your seventh house. But the increase of financial wellness is tied to the completion of this cycle for you. And so you'll be coming into some unearned income, quite possibly over the next 6 months to a year after this March 29th eclipse. And this is general bell curve astrology. Your chart is unique. So just, it's not going to be true for everyone, obviously.
And I was going to let you know, Lori, because I know your schedule is tight. We got about 6 minutes left.
Okay, I'll talk fast. I got about 5 minutes on the other edge of this. So I told my client that I could be a bit late after this show. So we'll be okay, I think. It's hard to condense 3 years of story into.
I know, you're amazing. Oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Okay, so if you guys are looking at the Virgos, Virgo sun, moon, and risings, but Virgo rising especially, I would suppose, the big changes of these eclipses in the eighth house started up in 23. And honestly, the eighth house is a deep mystery house. It's like the occult mysteries, tarot, numerology. I talk to dead people. And it's also the energy of the dissolution of the ego, and the snake that sheds the skin, and the caterpillar becomes a butterfly. So in that sense, that's pretty profound energy. Some of you may have gotten a lot of traction in that part of your sky, but a practical way of seeing that house is also the money you share with a spouse. And with eclipses there, sometimes people go through separation of assets with a spouse. Sometimes people can consolidate their assets with a spouse, or unite their assets, or change the way they share those assets together. The other thing about the eighth house being unearned income, including inheritances and tax rebates and stuff, you could have gotten some expansion of unearned income, including investments as well. Maybe your crypto took off or something. And that's the other energy that's been eclipsing and activating through your sky. This last eclipse really ties into the marriage house and the significant business partner house. And so if you had a business partner, you dump them, or you will. And if you have a significant other, this is an eclipse that can propel the relationship to an end, or to jumpstart it to a new and more profound beginning. And if it's a new, more profound beginning for you guys, it probably involves shared monies and maybe even shared assets towards purchases together, including a property. But things like that, where the money between two people is either going to fly apart or pull together with greater strength. And the next, 6 months to a year after the eclipse, you'll get to see what happens. It takes that long, a minimum of 6 months up to a year for a solar eclipse to show you what it's really about. Libras are looking at the change corridor being since 23 in Aries, straight away, their business partner, their significant long-term love partner. If you were single, you might have met a destined new partner in your life. If you were already with somebody during the eclipses since 23, you changed the stature of the relationship. I have a Libra friend who dumped a business partner. I have a Libra person I know who consolidated the relationship to a cohabitational union. So things expanded there, things increased there, amplitude went up in relationship. If you ever have clients, audience marketplace, you work with other people for your career, and you're not shut into like a dungeon or something, then that has also been changing. Destined shifts around those types of relationships. But now this last eclipse is opening up a door to your 6th house as well, with a node in the other house over Pisces. And there's a lot of change potentially a change in your work. But it will connect to also legal contracts that needed to be signed. And that's important here because sure, you could be in a job and you could get like a sideways promotion or something that could happen off of this. But with the legal contract aspect of the 7th house and Jupiter, by the way, in your 9th and Mars in the 10th, I'm going to say a handful to a giant 2 fistfuls of you guys are going to change your career, change your job, and maybe even need to make a major adjustment in the job. I mean, like big paperwork, maybe even visas. Some of you could get opportunities abroad, but there's some significant work change coming off this eclipse as well. And it will impact your significant long-term love relationship and your location where you live. Those are all in play for you during this last eclipse cycle. And good or bad, right? Does your spouse say, no, I'm not moving? Or does your spouse say, yeah, I can't wait, and the home changes that could go with it. Scorpio, and if you don't have a spouse, okay, fine. But if you have one, it's kind of like that. So Scorpios, you're having this last eclipse in Aries in the 6th house of health and work, pets and tenancies and rentals. And I bet you a few of you have had some situations of losing a pet here, or a new pet coming in since 2023, but also maybe an expansion of your work situation, more increase in your work, maybe more busy, but also more success. Also, the North Node eclipses through your 6th house may have put you up against a challenge with your health, especially around addictions as well. And if you have any situations where a habit, when I say addiction, don't think the worst, bad habits that impact your health were asked to be dispensed with since 2023. And many of you probably have already done that. And this last eclipse is going to open up a huge amount of energy for romance. If you're a single Scorpio, get on the dating scene because the node moves into the house of romantic love, and the 6th house is called the dating house. So this is good for singles to get into a very destined, fated, dynamic, beautiful love story. If you're with somebody, it's fertility, pregnancy, and making babies. If you are an artist, creative, or musician or actor, this is going to expand your success and get you work in your field, most likely. And finally, the eclipse asks you to really consider the possibility of debt elimination with ease, joy, and luck. And this is one of the rare times where I say buy a lottery ticket. So if you are thinking of, wanting to win money to eliminate debt, not too shabby for you. Otherwise, an inheritance could do the trick. Yeah, in the next 6 months after this eclipse. But you could also just know your limit, play within it, buy a lottery ticket, maybe after the eclipse, a couple days after, and see if that you're not going to get some 5th house money luck that helps you eliminate the Aries 6th house debt, credit card debt, car payments, whatever you got going. Sagittarius, the eclipses are friendly. You like them. You say, yes, please. And they flow to you from the 5th house of children. And I think that's really important to know. It might not be about you. Your eclipses in the house of children, if you have them, mean your children are going through destined change, basically. Or if you were single, you may have met a destined romantic partner. Or if you were married or with someone, increased your sex life a bit. But there's destined change in that part of the sky. And the last eclipse says destined change there. And by the way, connected to your home. If a romantic love relationship has been in distress, it could change the relationship. One person moves out, there's a separation of homes, there's a division there as well. And if you're with somebody already and it's going smoothly, this could consolidate the romantic relationship into a cohabitational one definitely could do that for you as well. These are just general possibilities. Remember that. And Jupiter is blessing your long-term love house, but he also just turned around from a retrograde. So he was testing the relationship. And some of you may decide that it's not worth it, and that's okay too. It's okay to let go of a relationship after this eclipse. Capricorns are going to find the energy of this very much about their home. And if you've been looking to find your home, true home, the one home where you belong, this could really bring it to you. Chiron wants to help you heal that. And so a North Node eclipse, the last one here, says, are you ready to find your home? So this could be just a new rental, a new neighborhood, a new property, a new homeland. I don't know, but it's going to try its best to help you shift that. And because this is also about your mother and your childhood, it's the end of a healing of mother wounds and childhood and ancestral wounds that you were either consciously or unconsciously dispensing with since last April of 23. This eclipse opens up third house storylines, which definitely could indicate a move, because both 3 and 4 are about location where you live, changing your neighborhood, moving closer to your siblings, moving closer to aunts, uncles, cousins, getting some kind of lucky break with a sibling. Maybe a sibling wants to give you a money or a property or share their property, but things to do with moving are definitely here for a lot of you, or traveling in order to move. So there's a shift of location most likely, and it's welcome. It's welcome because the North Node wants to give you something that feels expansive and better than what you already have, most usually. And that includes rental properties that are golden opportunities for you, because Jupiter is in the house of rentals. And if you are an Aquarius, I'm an Aquarius. It's going to look a lot like you're looking at the final nail in the coffin around challenges you've had, asking you to expand, grow, and change in writing projects, social media projects, websites, marketing and selling, but also neighbors, neighborhood, and the location in which you live. If you go, this is my daily habits in my daily environment, that's been changing too. This last eclipse not just only wants to maybe make changes to that part of your life, like let's just go with neighborhood for now. Say you wanted to change your neighborhood, then the money's coming for you to do that. Or you wanted to change the way you operate in your writing projects. Like, I need to write a book. I'm Aquarius rising. My agent's waiting for me. I need more time. I need more time to do that. I need more money to make me feel safe to do that. Let's make up a story. The North Node is in the house of earnings and resources and possessions, and it could radically increase your financial wellness in order for the changes in your third house to amplify successfully. So again, communicating, writing, marketing, selling, traveling short distances, doing online sales and marketing, or changing your neighborhood. Those are things that a lot of Aquariuses might do in the course of the next 6 to 12 months. And finally, if you happen to be a Pisces, well, you're looking at the money healing here. Your money wounds have been amplified since 2013 by Chiron. And I mean, it's just, you may have money, but if something's wounded about it, like maybe the way you got it, you don't like the pay stubs, you don't like the way you're getting the money, or you don't have enough money, or your possessions are wounded. But the financial wellness has been trying to heal and expand through eclipses since 2023. This last eclipse brings it home, because this is the one that allows you to merge your identity and fuse it with your values in order to produce greater wealth. And so this eclipse enhances your financial well-being and increases your wealth. At the same time, you're in alignment with that. And for a Pisces, that's often quite important, right? Because you guys don't chase the paper. You really have more depth of spiritual value and transcendent awareness than most ordinary muggles. And so now you're going to align your dietary style to your body's health, your money and values to your prosperity. And you've got 6 months to a year to do this, should you choose to accept the assignment. Whoa, I did it.
Yay. I was going to say it's 3:05.
Yeah. Well, my clients are very patient, but they just know that I'm finishing up a podcast. So this person's not going to be mad at me. No.
Beautiful. Well, if there's anything before you go, I just want to thank you so much for being here and sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom. Please, everyone, I'll include her channel in the show notes as well. I'm also going to have it at the top of my website, magdalenagrace.com. So if you also want to check that out later and learn more about me, but really share this show with anyone you know may be going through a lot. Eclipse season, it can be a shit show for some. And if they're not aware and if they don't tune in to wisdom like this, and what Lori shared today is so profound to also help with those world triggers, right? There's a lot of people who are triggered by what's going on around them. And if you focus more on your own self, I always tell people it's going to be easier.
Can I add something to that? Because I honestly, believe me, my client won't dismiss me. I just have to say one thing. You just made me remind everybody of the most important part of the eclipses, especially the Virgo one. But the underlying energy is to let go, let God, and also to kind of playfully say, I wonder what this means. It's not always like we have to go around, in a kind of, I don't know how to describe it, resting control. Jesus take the wheel, Carrie Underwood. That's a great song for any eclipse cycle. Jesus take the wheel. Don't try to grab the steering wheel. There isn't one. And I have a friend of mine, the one who came over with she's not drinking wine anymore, shocked the bejesus out of me. Well, she was with a bunch of people traveling throughout New Zealand who are American. She's Canadian. And they were all in the car and they were all grumbling and grumbling and grumbling about the political problems in the United States and the catastrophic one couple's moving out of the United States because Trump was elected. Don't forget, I'm Canadian, guys. But she said something very wise to them. She's a double Virgo like you. She said, maybe this is something good that's trying to happen. How do you know that even though it's not what you wanted, something better will come from it at the end of the day? And this is like really the innocence of a Canadian stumbling into American angst because it didn't go over so well. But she was right. Stop trying to grab the steering wheel of reality. There's a divine mind playing out and it has a plan.
Yeah, surrender to it. I learned that the hard way, again, not to get into the weeds of it, but as a double Virgo who's been working through, conscious uncoupling and all of this stuff, it was very, very, very painful. And then the silver lining is starting to show up like left and right. Like you said, the breadcrumbs at the beginning, there's don't miss the breadcrumbs. There's so much opportunity in this March Madness, and take advantage of that.
Exactly. And don't clutch the invisible non-existent steering wheel. Just let it go.
I know there was some questions out there and stuff, but I just will really encourage everyone to follow, Lori's channel, check out my website, magdalenagrace.com, as well to see the show for the rest of the month. I'll have it played there, and really like the next 6 months, because Lori talked about this is going to impact your life for the next 6 months. Is there anything else that you want to share before we sign off today?
No. But if you put your question in the comments later after my clients, I'll go look at the comments and the down below, and I'll look at your questions if you ask them now. It's just I do have a client waiting, but I will go answer your questions if they're in the comment structures later. All right.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for everyone tuning in. Again, Magdalena Grace signing off with the amazing Lori Lothian. And until next time, as I always like to say, the title of my show, here's to your best health, your best wealth, and your best wisdom. Bye-bye for now.
Oh,
thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe, download, leave a 5-star rating or review, and also please refer this to a friend you know who may benefit from this inspirational message. We hope to see you again. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or join my Facebook community. And if you are looking to manifest your best health, your best wealth by trusting your best wisdom within, please go to my website, www.microdosingforhealth.com. Again, www.microdosingforhealth.com to quiet your mind, get into your heart, heal your body, and manifest your best health and your best wealth.